Hello students, good day to y'all. So today we are going to discuss about how does the organizational culture affect the change. So at the end of today's lecture, you should be able to explain the three levels in culture, explain what is organizational culture, evaluate functions of organizational culture, evaluate the types of organizational culture, and you should be able to apply the Kotter's 8 steps in order to successfully implement change and the application of Rogers technology adoption curve. Let me see if it is recording. Yeah, okay. So today we are going to first focus on the levels of culture. So according to Trompenas and Hampton Turner, these are two scholars. In 2012, they have described cultures of all kinds to be of three levels. So basically, he has described that this culture is more like an onion and there are three layers in the particular onion. So level 1 is the surface. So in level 1, that means in an onion we can see the surface, no? So he has seen this particular surface of the culture to be the surface of the onion. So if it is the surface of the culture, the visible artifacts and products, in organizational terms this will be things like office layout and furnishing. Who gets the corner offices, are some chairs bigger and more luxurious than others. So basically, who is located where, like uh, such things belongs to level 1 or surface. Level 2, deeper, norms and values. Norms are the shared and accepted sense in organization of what is right and wrong. So what is simply known as norms is that in organizations there are no written rules as such, but from an organization to organization what they believe in as right and wrong is different. So that comes from the basis of norms. Sorry about my voice. And they are expressed in formal ways through the company rule book and in less formal ways by social control. So as I told you, there are no hard and fast rules to have it noted down in the company rule book, but it can be coming from less formal ways like social control. Values are the basis on which something is seen as good or bad based on the shared ideas and aspirations of those in the organization. So what is meant by value is that suppose that there are 20 employees in an organization, so what those 20 people believe to be good and bad is simply known as the values in the particular organization. And as a result, guide how people want to behave at their best, a work hard to succeed ethic, or a strong value about work-life balance are potentially contrasting examples of value. So what one organization believes as work-life balance may be different from what another organization believed to be as strong values related to work-life balance. Although they may occasionally be put into words, norms and values are most often noticed when they are violated. Actually, how we can the point where we get to see these norms and values is most probably when a particular norm or value is violated, not when they are in practice. The rest of the time they are simply assumed. Alright, so we have discussed the two levels in the cultures or the Trompenas and Hampton Turner's way of describing layers of culture. Level 3, basic assumptions. In national culture, Trompenas and Hampton Turner give as an example the assumption that all people are equal. So in the national culture, the level 3 is the basic assumption. For example, in national culture, these two scholars have given example as to the assumptions that all people believe that they are equal is one particular basic assumptions. Basic assumptions are seldom articulated except as political slogans, but underpin many of the norms and values of some societies. So I hope it was clear for you. Now we'll look at an example of basic assumption. So here, one example of a basic assumption is operation occurred in a retail pharmacy chain. So now we are going to look at a retail pharmacy chain. The assumption was that patient healthcare, medical ethics and the practitioner-patient relationship were supremely important. So if we look at a retail pharmacy chain, what they perceive to be important are medical ethics, practitioner-patient relationship and patient's healthcare, because it's a retail pharmacy chain. The pharmacy chain was bought by a major consumer goods retailer. So what has happened? This particular pharmacy chain was acquired by a major consumer goods retailer. We know that when it comes to major consumer goods retailer, they have aggressive sales culture in their business organization. Their business organization, when it comes to consumer goods retailer, they are more into achieving sales targets. Whereas in the retail pharmacy chain, their culture is very different from the culture that is there in the consumer goods retailer, because they are not that much into achieving sales targets. The merger failed largely because the retail branch managers, mostly strongly ethical pharmacists, could not adapt and operate effectively in the sales culture of the new parent company. So this merger has failed. The reason is stated to be because even the retail branch managers in the pharmacy chain were unable to get adapted themselves to the new sales culture of the parent company. So the parent company has been a major consumer goods retailer in where they have a strong aggressive sales culture. So I hope the three levels are clear for you all. Now we are going to look at what does this organizational culture really means. So in the basic terms, according to Edgar and Skene, so here they have explained organizational culture to be a pattern of shared basic assumptions that the group learned as it solved its problems that has worked well enough to be considered valid and is passed on to new members as the correct way to perceive, think and feel in relation to those problems. So basically this culture is said to be a pattern of shared basic assumptions that a particular group has learned, and they have believed that particular set of basic assumptions to be true. So then after that, since they have believed it to be true and valid, since they have considered to be valid, they passed it into the new members as the correct way of doing things. So that is how Edgar and Skene has described or explained organizational culture. And look at the second point, it says a common perception held by organizational members. So basically this culture is the common perception of those who are in the business organization to believe that how things are done. A system of shared meaning. So it's a shared assumption or shared meaning. A set of values and beliefs that is unique to any one organization. So may it be it can be the FMCG sector, even though the industry is same, how Unilever, the culture that is there in Unilever is totally different from the culture that is there in Hemas. The culture that is there in Nestle is totally different from the culture that is there in Unilever. So even though they operate in the same industry, their cultures are different, their cultures are unique. Okay, now we'll look at this video to have a better understanding as to why the culture is important in change.
The success rate of major change initiatives is quite low. It's actually 54% of all change initiatives are successful. It's a very low number. The top reason change initiatives fail is something we call change fatigue. means too many change initiatives without prioritization. The second reason is the CEO and his or her top team are just dictating what should change. What is this change program about? That actually doesn't work very often. The organization can become quite passive aggressive and wait until that CEO or executive team turns over before they actually enact the change. The biggest mistake change managers make is thinking that communications is the same as engagement. Very different, and both are incredibly important. The impact of poor organizational change management is actually threefold. First, the obvious one, you don't achieve the results the transformation expected. Second, you've wasted a lot of resources, time, people, money. And lastly, and maybe most importantly, you're typically left with diminished morale. The other thing that change managers do is believe that communications, maybe some training, and changing reward systems is enough to move an organization to a new place. And it's not. Culture is critical to the success of change management programs. Most change programs deal very effectively with the formal aspects of an organization. This could be decision rights, process flows, structure, performance management system. But the definition of culture is how things get done around here. And that is as much influenced by the formal aspects as it is from how someone thinks, believes, acts, and feels. So you have to deal with the cultural aspect or you won't impact the change in the way you want. Change managers should address culture by first focusing on the cultural strengths. What is in the culture that could actually help you feel proud about what you need to do in front of you? Use that. It's an asset in your organization that's rarely used. Second, you need to unleash the power of what we call special forces. They're the informal leaders in your organization. Sometimes they have a position in management, sometimes they don't. But those people in the organization that are trusted, that motivate, that instill pride in everything you do. Lastly, you need to create an environment in the organization that we call coherent. That means if you're any one employee in the organization, every signal that the organization sends you, whether it's from your manager, it's from an email, it's from a speech, it's from a town hall, create coherence. I get it. I know what I need to do to make this happen. And nobody's sending me a message that says don't do it that way. The ideal change management team should have multiple entities engaged. First and foremost is the CEO and his or her executive leadership team. They not only need to understand the change program, they need to start acting in different ways that's very visible to the rest of the organization. You also need the middle managers, respected middle managers. Again, showing that they themselves are going to do things differently. And that because before you can ask your team to do that, you need to be able to walk in those shoes. And it's critical to engage the front line. Team members, supervisors, typically the face to your customers, incredibly important that they're part of this change team. And lastly, and very importantly, are the culture and change experts in your organization. They need to be there to be the counselors, to ensure the program happens, and to give that expert advice.
Okay, so I hope now it is more clear for you. Now it's very clear for you as to why this culture plays a significant role in change. Okay, so why this culture and why these cultural experts in a business organization, how do they have to behave when there's a change being implemented? So how can you categorize culture? So Taylor, it's another scholar in 2005 lists 5 positive cultural focuses that organization might select. So the organization can select their focus on the culture in either of these 5 focuses. First one is achievement. So an organization can either be performance driven, their organizational culture is as such that they are performance driven, or accountability driven, or else it could be based on the delivery. And customer centric. So if it is a customer centric culture, it would be more of externally focused. So we are very much careful as to how what does our customer feel at the end of the day. And it could be service oriented, or it could be sustainable. The third one would be one team. Whether our business organization believes in working as a team and focused on internal customers. So internal customers simply means the employees, whether our employees are so much into this unity or synergy. And innovativeness, entrepreneurship, agile, creative, and learning. So whether our business organization has a culture that would like to innovate, that would like to develop themselves, more like the culture that is there in Apple. They are open into entrepreneurship and innovations. And people first, empowerment, development, and care. Whether our business organization has a culture which is more of employees, which is more concerned about the employment care, empowerment, and development. For example, if we look at the Sri Lankan context, we assume that Nestle Lanka PLC has to be more of a people first culture. They are more into having believed that the empowerment of their employees and the development of their employees is important, other than that mass. So mass carry out certain tasks and activities in order to purely develop their employees. Okay. So now we are going to focus on the functions of organizational culture. So when it comes to an organizational culture, there are some functions that this particular organizational culture has to play. It has to take care of certain functions. First one is it defines the boundary between an organization and others. So this organizational culture is one particular criteria how your organization is different from the others. It lays a particular boundary. And the second one, so here conveys a sense of identity for its members. So we know when there is a particular, the reason why we say that organizational culture lays a boundary is because it creates a uniqueness of the particular business organization. So by doing so, it conveys a sense of identity for its members. So since there is a uniqueness created by the culture, it gives a sense of identity for the employees who are working in that particular culture. And it facilitates the generation of commitment to something larger than self-interest. So this particular organizational culture is said to be facilitating the generation of their commitment to something larger than the self-interest. So it's not individual driven, but it's organizational driven. So they are not focusing on the self-interest, but the interest of the organization. And it enhances the stability of the social system. So this culture enhances or advances the stability of the business organization as a social system, since they believe or share the same set of values. Serves as a sense-making and control mechanism for fitting employees in the organization and for shaping behavior. So this particular organizational culture said to be serving as a sense-making and a controlling mechanism. So I told you this culture is said to be more visible when a particular employee violates a particular norm or a value that's said to be believed by the other employees. So it means that there is a control mechanism hidden inside this culture. So it controls how the things are done around here. How the things are done around in a company is controlled by this particular culture. in order to fit employees in the organization and for shaping behavior. So this control mechanism helps the employees to fit themselves into the particular culture, and it helps the organization in shaping the behavior of its employees. And the last point, the last function of the organizational culture is that it helps organizational members attribute sense and meaning to organizational events. So what this organizational culture does is that it supports the members of the organization in attributing sense and meaning to organizational events, and also in reinforcing the values in the organization. So these are said to be the functions of organizational culture. So in the next video we would be focusing on, so in the first video let's look at what are the objectives that we have achieved. So now you know what are the 3 levels in culture in general, and then we have explained as to what is an organizational culture, and we have looked into the functions of organizational culture. So in the next video, in the next part of today's lecture recording, we would be focusing on the rest of the 3 learning objectives.